Lokati here. Today we're going to be going over our proposed tier list for Path of Exile 2 0.2.0. We just went over the patch notes and it's a little grim. So we're going to start off with just an overall tier list based on the total sum of previous builds and the viability both league start and in-game on these characters. This is a very generalized tier list. First one on the chopping block, Chayula. This is quite possibly the least played, least effective class that served really only one purpose, and that was utilizing darkness to get around taking honor damage and the trials for no hit runs, to which they nerfed. In addition, they nerfed all chaos damage, and they nerfed Chayula itself, leaving Chayula solidly in F tier. Next one up is going to be Blood Mage. Now, Blood Mage has a very specific role in PoE, and that is crit spells. They didn't nerf crit spells, but they did nerf Detonate Dead, one of the primary spells used by Blood Mage. They nerfed Choir, Greater Lightning Bolt, one of the primary spells used by Blood Mage. And they added some additional damage through bleeds and possibly fizz crit and fizz bleed spells. However, with the major nerfs to the current builds on Blood Mage, I would have put him in like S tier before, and we're going to shunt him down to B tier. I don't think that he is going to be anywhere near as good as he was before, especially with all the problems that arise by being unable to use Ghost Drive and being unable to use Chaos Inoculation, they don't have access to the Chaos Inoculation Ghost Drive setup. You can't do that anymore anyway because they did nerf conversions with items that set your life mana totals. So I think Blood Mage overall is not in a good position. So we'll put him in B tier. He's still going to be crit-based spell build, and he's got some potential with fizz spells, maybe as bleeds or just fizz crit builds. Armor breaking does increase damage now against fizz damage, so there's some potential here. Solid B tier. Chronomancer really only worked whenever people took a broken interaction that another character used and just shoved it into the Chronomancer template, and then it still did a worse job of it. So, Chronomancer, F tier. Maybe there's something we can do with this Unleash Ascendancy that they add. I'm not sure. The chances are it's going to just sit alongside Chayula here, eating Taco Bell and sitting on the toilet at 3 a.m. Next up, Deadeye. The Deadeye is a solid S tier build. It has very strong options in bows and had some other interesting, unique options. There still exists some possibility for a melee Deadeye with the use of spears. Bows got pretty heavy-handed nerfs with quivers, and bows got pretty heavy-handed nerfs with combat frenzy, making Spiral Arrow not quite as spammable. And then Spark Deadeye is dead. Spark is dead. And so I think Deadeye previously in S tier will now qualify greatly in A tier, with bow builds still being strong enough to function. And Deadeye has a lot of potential with the new spears, and that part of the tree is getting some revamps. We don't know exactly what that looks like yet, but I think Deadeye is still going to be a solid A tier, both league start and end game. The Gemling Legionnaire got hammer nerfed. Attribute stacking got nerfed by 80%. Spark got nerfed and is dead. Grenades got nerfed. The crossbows got buffed. Eldritch Battery is all but dead for Gemling Legionnaire because they couldn't deal with the mana regen for bossing. They had to use mana on kill quivers, but quivers got nerfed. So I think across the board, Gemling Legionnaire is solid B tier, C tier. Someone can probably come up with a better build for him. And the attribute stacking stuff will be very cheap because attribute stacking will not be as popular. So, like, on a budget, your attribute stacking is probably a little bit better. But then once you get to the end game, attribute stacking is all but dead because it can't scale. because there is no way to make up for the massive damage losses. Now we are on Infernalist. Infernalist is one of my favorite classes. And one of my favorite builds for Infernalist, Barrier Invocation Loop, is dead. Hellhound is dead. Infernalist lost defenses, Infernalist lost offenses. Infernalist won't be able to take advantage of pre-conversion on Amulet, pre-conversion on Ghost Ride. That Serious Disdain got nerfed. Infernalist is not in a great position. But self-cast Demon Form Infernalist will still be viable. And I think that puts her in a solid B tier. She can hang out with the Blood Mage. Invoker, previously an S tier build, didn't get that many nerfs. Didn't get that many buffs. Their spirit got a little bit of a nerf. Their defenses got a little bit of a buff. They got some buffs to elemental expression, which no one uses and no one's probably going to continue using. Combat Frenzy got nerfed, so Charge Generation is nerfed. Tempest Spell got decimated, which is not true. The inversion of decimated. It went from 100% effectiveness to about 10% effectiveness, which is going to hurt mid-game and early game Invoker a ton, and so Invoker becomes only an in-game build. That being said, I think it's still a strong in-game build. We'll go ahead and stick it in A tier, hanging out here with a Deadeye. Maybe we can do something with spears on him. Pathfinder. Or Pathfinder. Pathfinder has had one of the most tumultuous positions of the Ascendancies. Starting off sucking, coming out great, going back to mediocre, and I think they're going to go back to sucking. There's a little bit of an attack speed buff to concoctions with a base attack speed buff for unarmed skills, but then there's a line that says that concoctions need an unarmed weapon set, which could mean that they cannot use bows and quivers. If they cannot use bows and quivers with concoctions, concoctions is dead. Bow skill Pathfinders are also dead. Gas arrow is dead. Toxic growth is dead. Flash charges are nerfed, but I like Pathfinder. We're going to stick her in C tier, but she will immediately drop to F tier if you cannot equip a bow and quiver with concoctions. Stormweaver. Previously would have been hanging up here in the S plus tier as the best league start, the best mid game, one of the best end games, solid progression, easy gear, nothing required, great scaling. Stormweaver had everything going for it. Now Stormweaver got a 60% mana regen nerf, a 12% exposure nerf, a 25% shock magnitude nerf, an 80% lightning conduit nerf, 100% mana cost nerf. Malice is dead, Spark is dead, Pain Offering is dead, Stormweaver's dead. That being said, Stormweaver is still a very powerful Ascendancy, even though Spark is absolutely dead. We're going to stick her in C tier because I think she's still got potential, but Spark Archmage got such a hammer nerf that I think she's not going to be functional anymore. Titan and Warbringer. Titan and Warbringer are interesting classes. Warriors get the most shit talked about them and are the least exciting classes to play. But they performed exceptionally well in the race. And Titan has a bunch of unique build opportunities because of his increase to small nodes. There is a new spectral support that has a duration, and we can do reduced duration on it, and maybe have spectral supports that attack instantly, giving you a total 60% more damage nerf. There's a lot of cool things we can do with Titan. Trample Toe got nerfed with Ice Crystals, but it didn't say Trample Toe got nerfed with Shield Wall. So I think Titan is going to be A tier for now. If Trample Toe affects Shield Wall, he'll drop to B. Warbringer. Solid D tier. Like there's Corrupting Cry builds and there's Totem builds and they work. They're not good. They don't function well as a league start. They scale really poorly. They're very expensive. But they're functional. I just don't think Warbringer is bringing anything to the table. They got some buffs, but it was nothing impressive. Good old Witch Hunter here. Witch Hunter is kind of like the redheaded stepchild of the mercs, but only because Gemling has been shining so much. Witch Hunter did get a little bit of a buff to No Mercy, a little bit of a buff to Sorcery Ward, which no one's going to use. Grenades got nerfed, but crossbows got buffed. And so I think we can probably do something with Witch Tier, or with Witch Hunter. I think either a C or D tier is possible. And I think we put Witch Hunter in C tier, especially based on where everything else is right now. Now we've got the Huntress. Now, the Huntress is one of the new Ascendancies. She's got an accuracy stacking node that looks very strong, especially with the nerfs to critical weakness and Winter's Eye. Stalking Panther would have been nice for Queen of the Forest build, but Queen of the Forest got nerfed. Maybe that's not worth going for anymore. Life Leech recovers elemental damage, gives her some sustain. I think she's got some potential. I really think that this girl can do something fun and can do something good. So we're going to put her in A tier, especially since there's a lot of unknown and a lot of potential. Then we've got a Ritualist. Now, Ritualist really... Sorry, this is Lich. We've got Ritualist. Ritualist really only has one thing going for her, Unfurled Finger. Unfurled Finger gives her an additional ring slot, which is very powerful, but it takes a penalty to access it. Then you get to do some more Ascendancy nodes. You get some increased bonuses from equipped rings and amulets, essentially giving her one additional ring slot here, and then an additional ring slot here. These are very powerful nodes, but she doesn't have anything else going for her. And so I think overall, Ritualist is going to sit in B tier for now. But there's just a lot of raw generic stats that you get from the rings and the ring and amulet bonuses. And Ingenuity got nerfed and then nerfed again. If Ingenuity was unnerfed, she would definitely be A tier, but we're going to put her in B tier as everything sits for right now. Now, we have the Smith of Kitava, and he's a new one. A little reminiscent of the Chieftain, and some unknown things here. Fire Spell on Hit is going to be not Fire Spell on Hit. It's going to be a trigger skill that generates energy that then casts a spell once enough energy is generated. And so we don't know if that is going to be worth anything or worth nothing. Temper Weapon could do something. It could do nothing. Manifest Weapon could be amazing, and it could be garbage. The only thing we do know about him is that this is all trash. But he can only use normal armor. So I think this passive skill will not get allocated outside of the leveling process. So I think you're just better off wearing a good armor. Which leaves us to Forged in Flame Coal Stoker, which just is high resistances. And so here's what I see on this guy. This is a generic bottom left tree template that wears a Cloak of Flame for fizz damage and has all res at 90%. And that's all he's got going for him. There is a chance that one of these things could be really good. I'm going to probably believe, based on the patch notes, that none of those are going to be good. So we have a generic attacker that has some solid defenses. That sounds like a B tier build. Next up, we have Yield Tactician. Now, Tactician has some interesting things going on here. I don't really know how supporting fire is going to play out, or what the damages on command from above are going to be. This totem's having more skill speed, and totems only use skills when you fire an attack projectile is not great, but not bad. There is a chance that there's a ballista totem build here, but then you're using focus totem. Crossbows got buffed, and so that's good for him. And he does have increased totem damage here. He's got increased spirit here, and a bunch of little things that could give him some potential. I don't think Tactician is an S tier build at all, but I think it's got enough potential to be a B tier build. And last up on the block is going to be Lich. Now, I don't like having a tier that no one sits in, but the reality is no one sits in it. Before the patch notes, I would have put Lich at S tier. At Zeri's Disdain, would have been amazing. Corrupted up to 30%, giving this massive damage reduction to your character. But at Zeri's Disdain got nerfed. We did get a new Ascendancy node, Heavy Buffer, which gives her some damage, bypasses Energy Shield. And so now you get a corrupted at Zeri's Disdain with like 12% and then 5% from the Ascendancy nodes. You got 17% flat reduction by utilizing the where's the node here? Where's Lichy? By utilizing Soulless Form and Eternal Life, you get this damage reduction. And so you get 10% of damage, bypasses Energy Shield here. And then your life cannot change while you have Energy Shield. And then you get another 12% from a Serious Sustain, it's 22%. You get another 5% from the node, it's 27%. That's 27% flat damage reduction across the board on your character. That's solid. You've also got the ability to use Life Tap, and your life cannot change while you have Energy Shield. And so as long as you don't, theoretically, as long as you don't have enough life to cast the spell, you can spam it with Life Tap. And you can use spells that have very high mana cost without any concern there. So that's got some potential. Got this non-channeling skills consume power charges to deal more damage. Maybe there's something to play with there. We do have Curse Explosion over here. Although all the curses got nerfed, so Blasphemy support is less effective in general. But having an explosion is very nice. You've also got this ability to use minions with Unholy Might. And so that's a nice bonus there. And then your Soulless Form will counteract the loss of mana here for Necromantic Conduit. So I think the build has a lot of potential, but I just don't think Lich is going to land in S tier. For the patch, yes. After the patch, A tier. So as a result, we've got Deadeye, Invoker, Titan, Huntress, and Lich on A tier. We've got Blood Mage, Infernalist, Huntress, Smith, and Tactician in B tier. We got Gemling Legionnaire, Pathfinder, Stormweaver, and Witch Hunter in C tier. Warbringer in D tier. Chayula and Chronomancer living at Taco Bell. For League start, I think this is all pretty close. I think the Warbringer is probably a little bit better on League start, and maybe some of the other ones are a little bit worse on League start. You should be good with going with this for your League start, though. If you have any questions over anything, as always, please drop a comment down below or come by Twitch and ask. We will be theory crafting today on trying to figure out what builds we're going to play and what we're going to put together. Until then, I'll see y'all in Path of Exile tomorrow. Peace.